we're starting out this year with my first podcast. And my podcast, of course, is More Than Mortgages. And I am so excited to introduce my good friends, Karren Amidon and Kathryn Brown. They are a team with the Amidon team at Chattahoochee Keller Williams agency. And Karren, we met many, many years ago, and I didn't know Kathryn then. So I would love to hear your story of how did you meet?
Well, we have known each other for over 20 years, and we live in the same neighborhood. We still live in the same neighborhood, and Karren has a very interesting story. I'll let you tell that story about how we actually met with our kids.
Yeah. Let's just say the story has it that her son bit my son on the school bus.
Oh.
And so that's how we met, but our kids ended up being best friends.
Oh, okay.
And I coached Odyssey of the Mind, and her son was on the team, and so we got to know each other that way. So.
And then how did you hook up for real estate?
Well, I did real estate. I got into real estate, got my license before Kathryn. She later joined a different company doing different type of work. And then I kept saying, you should work with me. She was like, I don't want to work with a friend, we're in our friendship.
That would be,
And then, enough alcohol.
Enough alcohol. And we had been on like our neighborhood swim team prior. Karren was the president, I was the treasurer. So we had our incidences of working really well, and then we knew how to resolve our conflict too. Yeah. So we had at least gone through that. So when she said, will you come and work for me? I did hesitate at first, but then I finally was like, yep, let's do it. And
so, Kathryn, you were already a real estate agent, you said?
No, my start was when I went back to work. I started working for a small boutique real estate firm. It was a woman-owned. There were only about 3 agents there. It was the height of the foreclosure crisis.
Okay.
And so they had a contract with one of the asset management companies that worked with HUD.
Okay.
So
you were busy.
Yeah, I was the list to close manager.
Right.
So, and that was in 2010, and I was licensed in 2014.
Okay. And then Karren, your background, I know, is math, right?
Right. I have a math degree. I was an actuarial analyst for 8 years. Decided to stay at home with the kids. Did that for 8 years, and then got my real estate license.
So how did you decide on real estate coming from your background?
Well, my dad was a builder, grew up around real estate, and they'd had a very bad situation with the sale of a house that they didn't have. They were for sale by owners, and they ended up in litigation, and $20,000 in 2 years, tons of worry. They were able to keep their house.
Wow, okay.
So my husband came home one day, and he said, I've got this friend, and his partner is a real estate agent. He's making tons of money, and he said, you'd be really good at this. Yeah. Famous last words. So I'm like, maybe I should do this. And so I got my license and got into it. And it was not what I was expecting, but I love it.
At that time, a lot of math was required.
Yeah.
Not that it still isn't. So I guess, how do you separate your expertise and combine that? So what is, I guess, Kathryn, we could start with you. What do you bring to the partnership?
The separation is really more maybe obvious when we are working with a seller, that is a listing client. My expertise is at one point I realized, how can we make the home look as best as we possibly can? Because we joke that we want to win the beauty contest, but it's really the war. I want to win that war. Yeah. So I started researching staging, and so I became certified in staging. And
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's great.
You have some stagers out there that have no certification, but to me, you need to be educated. It's like anything else. So I do a lot of the, I call it like the pre-listing property, like project management of getting the house ready for sale. And then Karren, then we get together and we decide on the price of the property. And then Karren's forte, her strength, her She just knows contracts back and forth. I mean, she could do it in her sleep. So I've learned so much from her. So that is a separation on the listing side. The buyer side, we both go out, we work with clients, we find them properties, we figure out what do they need, how can we get them to their dream home.
And then back to the staging
Yes.
real quick.
Yeah, I
So
love
I'm
it,
thinking
yes.
of my house, and if you came in my house and started saying, well, you know, we need to move this, we need to move that, I think I would be really uncomfortable. So how do you delicately approach that with people, right? Because it's their stuff.
That is the key word. You have to be very delicate about it. Your goal is to let that client know that there is a positive result at the end of this.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to be really gentle because it's somebody's life that you're going in and saying, this is your style, this is your life. We want to depersonalize this, show your house, make your house look as wonderful as possible. So as many buyers are attracted to that.
Right,
And
increasing
then,
that pool. Okay.
Yeah, and then gently
Yeah.
say, well, maybe we need to move this, we need to move that, and then we bring in our own items too.
Oh, you have your own
Yeah,
items?
we do for occupied staging.
Oh, okay,
And then if it's a
okay.
vacant stage and we have a client that wants to have it staged, we use a company. We have a company that will come in. But it is, you're right, it's very, very delicate.
Right. Which is easier to market, do you think? Or what would you prefer, an empty home or one that has items in it?
Depends.
Well, yeah, it depends on the state of the home. Like if the home is you can't do anything to it to bring it to its best, then it's just let it be a vacant. We specialize in occupied and vacant with furniture in it.
Okay.
It's easier for a buyer to visualize how they can live in that property. It's in square footage always looks bigger with furniture in there too.
So new construction, that might be a little tricky, right? Because everyone would look at, what were you going to say?
But there's showrooms. I mean, you have your
okay.
Yeah, the model homes.
the model
The
home
model,
show. Yeah, the model.
But
yeah.
that's always like the prettiest, right?
Yeah.
And then you look in something that maybe you're going to buy.
But you're buying a dream.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
And that helps you visualize what your dream can be.
Right, right. And then on what you do, Karren, so from the start to the finish, what is your plan?
So really, the first thing you need to do, whether you're helping somebody buy a house or sell a house, is figure out what the market value is of the home. And so that's the analytical approach that I bring to the table. So, pricing is where everything starts. Doesn't matter how beautiful it is, what location it is. If you're not priced right, it's not going to get the traffic. So we like to say you need to find the Goldilocks number, not too high, not too low, but just right.
I would struggle with that, to be honest. That would be, I feel like people always say, well, Zillow says this. So how do you approach that?
So first of all, you have to get all the specifics of the home. It's always best if we're able to go in the home and view it, so we really know kind of what condition the home is in. And then we will pull comparable properties. If it's a neighborhood that we farm or we sell a lot in, we will go and look at the houses when they first go on the market. Even if we don't have a buyer or a seller at the moment, we'll go and look at those properties so we know, and we'll take pictures when we're in there, because we know as real estate agents, pictures can be so deceiving.
Right.
So we'll take pictures, we'll make notes, and then when we're working with a seller that's thinking about selling, we can say, well, this house really, this is why it is maybe not as good as your house, or maybe a little bit better. So, and then we can figure out where do you fall, and it's not. Again, you got to be delicate, right? Because a lot of people think that their house is better than everybody else's, but looking at the pictures and looking at the square footage and bringing it down to the nuts and bolts, a lot of times people will come up to the price that we have come up with. It's kind of showing them and having them lead the way too sometimes. So.
Well, I was going to ask on the price. So if you have someone who says, well, I need to get this because I have a first mortgage, and then I have a second mortgage, and then I have a tax lien. So have you ever had to tell someone, we're just not going to be able to sell it for that then? Or how do you handle that?
So
if you've had it.
Yeah. Well, so when I first started in the business was in '06. And I remember, when the market crashed, I would go in and sit down with people, and that was their attitude. I need this for my house. And unfortunately, I can make people cry because what they could sell their house for and what they thought they had to sell their house for was way, way different. At the time, I would do short sales because that was the only way to sell.
Yep.
But
Are you seeing any of that now? Not to interrupt. But
no.
Okay.
No, not really, because
Okay.
that's a whole other story.
Okay.
So the main thing is that you have to get people to come to a position that you're not going to overpay for a property, right? So you got to figure out what is the market willing to pay. Right. And, so what you think you need to get out of the house may be not reality. And, we say to our clients, we will tell you what you need to hear, not always necessarily what you want to hear.
Right.
Because if you always have somebody that tells you what you want to hear, you'll have bad results.
Right.
You're not going to, reach your goals. So we always do a net to seller at the beginning so they get an idea of what they can walk away from the table with, which I think is really important, especially, sellers are buyers.
Yes. Right.
So a lot of times before they even go to you,
Yeah.
they need to know, if I sell my house, how much money are we going to have to work with as far as a down payment is concerned.
So how do you, that would actually be a good question for me to ask an agent, because I always, when I'm reaching out to agents, I'm told frequently, I only work with sellers. I only do listings. And that's what I always thought. Well, isn't your seller going to be a buyer?
Yeah.
So why would agents not want to handle all of that for this seller? So how do you handle that?
Maybe in that situation where it's the one client, they will work with the seller, then they'll work with them as a buyer. But you do have agents, that specialize just strictly in listings, and other agents that strictly work with buyers. I think working with both, how to work with all of them even better.
Yeah. I mean, if you've made that relationship with the seller, right?
Yeah.
Then why would you want to just punt to somebody else?
Well, some people specialize in buyers. I mean, that's their forte, and that's what they, they have somebody on their team that they trust, and they can pass them over to that person. Yeah. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Keller Williams, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book teaches a progression, and you don't have to go to the big teams where you have somebody who's like the rainmaker, and then you have the listing agents and the buyer specialist and the transaction coordinators, and sometimes you have these 10, 20 person teams, which run kind of like a company, and everybody has their specialty. So for those or even not even those 20 person teams, sometimes you have a 4 or 5 person team where you have the person that does the listings, and then buyers, they have a buyer's agent that deals with buyers. That's not what we do, because we feel like it's about the whole process.
Right.
And by working with buyers, you can be a better listing agent, and vice versa.
Right.
You got to be able to put on both hats. And
I just had a thought too with the sellers. I know in my own neighborhood, if a seller or one of my neighbors is selling, I would think that to get to know that buyer even coming in, right? That's just more pool of people that now you're adding to your database. So if you can make it a win-win, so now when Mary sells her home, or you sell Mary's home, and now you're handling Mary's buying experience, well, Mary's still friends with all of her old neighbors. Yeah. So now she can say, oh my gosh, Karren and Kathryn, they did all of this for me. They made it seamless, partnered together, and I would highly recommend them.
Yeah.
I think that's a better,
Yeah.
So I'm curious on, I know a lot of different real estate agents, they only do either internet or social media. They don't do networking groups. And I know, Karren, we met at Gwinnett Chamber back in the day. And Karen, we both do, or we all do, a Women Wine Wednesdays, which is a lot of fun, once a month. And what is your, I guess, just to tell other agents, or what your take is on, you do it all, right? I mean, you do still keep in contact with your customers. You do your networking. Actually, Karen, you were president of the NAMAR, so I'll stop and let you address some of those questions.
So I love networking. I think it's so important to have kind of your go-to sphere of people that. So if we're working with a client that needs to, painting or, whatever, I've got a guy. I've got somebody that can help you. So we're resources to our clients.
Yes.
But, the thing about if you network correctly, you can create a little black book, and those people that are in your book end up being your salespeople.
Right.
Because maybe Susie down the street wants to sell her house. Well, great. Awesome. But what's even better is the Susie down the street that's an estate attorney that has all these clients that need to probate their properties, and they need an agent to sell. So that's even, a larger pool of potential clients. So, so I think that's important. So
good. And Kathryn, do you have your thoughts?
I started doing networking when I came on board with Karren, and it can be scary sometimes if you're first starting out. Like, you're walking in there, I've got to talk to strangers, and you realize everybody feels the same way. Everybody's just getting to know each other. And for me, I have what's known as it's a seniors real estate designation. It's a specification of working with 55 plus individuals. Well, we both belong to the Gwinnett Senior Provider Network.
Okay.
And you have this whole group of vendors that can help you when you're dealing with a client who is downsizing, moving to a retirement community. And it's through that networking that you're getting to know them. You're doing, as Karren liked to say, a one-to-one. And it only helps you when you go to having to help this client. And if you're not networking, you don't know these things exist and these vendors exist. I mean, I met you through our Duluth group, right?
Right. I was just thinking with the seniors, because that seems to be the new favorite tag, right? I'm a senior helper or senior.
Right, because the boomer generation
I didn't
so
realize
large.
that you had designation that you could get.
There's education designation. And when you're working with somebody who is moving from their home, I mean, you have to find them estate sale companies. You have to find them.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah, think of vendors, handyman to get the place ready. There might be attorneys that they need because they're trying to set up their estate. I mean, there's this whole slew of people that you need to help a seller. And that's what we do. We just don't go, hey, we're going to put your house on the market and that's the end of it. No, there's all this additional planning and their needs that we try to satisfy.
And with your vendors, so do you, I guess, just how many, or what are, I know certainly your painters, and one of the things that I don't see a lot, but when I do, agents are always asking a structural engineer. So have you?
One.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got structural engineers. We've got water. Any issues with if we have an inspection and there's an issue with the crawl space or any water intrusion, we have somebody that we've worked with, and
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And with different counties or in the territories, what is your sweet spot as far as area that you like to work?
So, I mean, we live and work in Gwinnett.
Yeah.
But I think our sweet spot is like 85, 316 over to 400.
Okay.
The Lawrenceville, Buford, Swanee, Norcross. But we also go north towards Flowery Branch and Jefferson.
Brazelton,
we But there's some places that we don't go because that would be, we may not be a member of that MLS.
Right.
We don't know the agents there. We don't have that kind of skills that we can bring to the client. So, but we know because of our affiliation with NAMAR and the Georgia Association of Realtors, I was president of NAMAR 2 years ago, but Kathryn is the current treasurer this year.
Okay.
So we both
I should have known that. I'm
involved.
sorry.
That's okay. I didn't put it in there.
We're both involved at the state level, and with BNI, I know agents all over the country.
Wow,
So if
okay.
somebody is looking to make a move or sell a property and it's not in our designated area, we know somebody,
Right.
or we know somebody who knows somebody that is really good that's going to take care of you. So
Yeah.
so we can always refer it out to another
Yeah, we've
agent.
referred out, had people in New York.
Okay.
I'm from Albany, New York originally,
Yeah.
and I'll get calls, Kathy, I want to sell my house up here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you find me an agent? So sure, we'll find you an agent to sell your house in Albany, New York.
Okay.
And we've gone to Hartwell, Georgia. We sold property in Hartwell,
Okay.
Fayetteville. We will only do that for I would say, a really solid
Right.
clients, because there's like Karen said, there's a lot of traveling. There's
Yeah.
but yeah, well,
Good. Yeah. On I know. So NAMAR, just to Karen, can you say what does that stand for? Because some people
so
may
it's
not
Northeast Metro Atlanta Association of Realtors.
know that. Okay. And how many members are there?
So there's over 6,000 members.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, so it's a lot of agents, and then we are also board members of the Georgia Association of Realtors.
Wow. Okay.
So at the state
okay.
level, we're getting ready for a conference in February
February.
in Atlanta, which
Wow.
is not normally in Atlanta, but
Yeah.
it is this
So
year,
you two really are just exceptional, I have to say, because for me, I've 30 years in the business. I've met a lot of real estate agents. Some, let's put it this way, they're not involved in anything except their own what's in front of me, my business. Some are involved in the NAMAR, different organizations, but then they're not really focusing on their own business. So you, to be able to do all of it and to still want to just continue to get better, I have to tell you, it's very impressive. Very
appreciate it.
impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So, Kathryn,
Yes.
what are the colors? I'm just
Back
so
to the-
curious. Yeah,
Are you-
because
ba-
I'm.
back to like decorating.
Yeah,
and I just want to
yeah.
clarify that. There's a difference between staging and decorating. So what I might recommend as a trend for decorating is not necessarily for staging.
Well, tell us both then.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I would love to know both.
I'm
yeah.
smiling.
Yeah.
My
So
go
this color for my walls.
Right. Yeah. Maybe with wallpaper, really cute in the I call half bath a jewel box. You can have fun in there. If my go-to color, if I'm listing a property and the seller has a lot of colors all over, it's like a grayish. It's more beige. Gray is out. It's cold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
I thought gray too would be like commercial spaces more.
You saw it a
Yeah.
lot with the builders.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it came from California originally, the builders. Don't hold me to that. But so it got very pronounced here too. So I like a soft beige on the walls. That way
Okay.
you're not seeing just the walls. But jewel tones are back in, a lot of the natural colors. So for staging, I can work with those. We'll just downplay anything else that's around that's kind of taking over. But there's more, getting back to more of, not, minimalism is kind of going to the wayside.
Really?
And a nice, comfy, warm environment
Okay.
is what's coming in. It's funny because you read some of these things and they say white kitchens are out, and I still like for sale. I like white cabinets because you
Okay.
can do a lot with them. But they're saying like white countertops, white tiles, backsplash. That's kind of going to the wayside also. But I like white.
Okay. And then what is your, I guess, Karen, do you do anything with the colors at all? Or do you ever look at Kathryn and
Actually,
say,
I asked Kathryn, what should I do? 'Cause
okay, yeah, yeah,
she's definitely got the touch.
Right.
But
Karen's learned, yeah.
I have
She-
learned
yeah,
a lot.
She
Okay.
has.
Yeah.
I've gotten. But so my husband and I are looking at houses, and I've noticed there's a lot of navy now.
Yes.
Oh,
Actual
okay.
walls.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
in
I was going to ask you, what are the
bathrooms
jewel tones? I didn't want to embarrass
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. It's like the purples, the blues, the greens,
Oh.
the richer, the
Yeah.
richer. But,
Okay.
But in some, and even in some places, your whole room is one color too.
So even the ceiling, right? Okay,
A
I
lot
have seen that.
A lot
Yeah.
of the fancy woodworking, the wainscoting, that's very popular now too.
Oh, okay. That's what I had in my house in Lilburn.
That, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Do they paint that or just leave it natural?
You paint it.
Okay. How about the floors? What's
The floors you still see, hardwoods are really, that's the go-to.
okay?
Yeah.
Still timeless. Yeah.
Still time. If you're going to sell your house, I'll tell you this piece of advice. If you have carpeting in your master bath, get it out. We
Really?
still
Yes.
see that.
Okay.
Get it out. You
Okay.
don't have to spend a lot of money on a replacement, but just get that out.
Is it important to have your bathroom updated? Okay.
Karen,
Still,
what are the
it's
most
always
important rooms?
Yeah.
Kitchen and the master bathroom.
Kitchen. If to stage, the most important rooms to stage that make an impression on buyers are the living room or family room, the kitchen, the master bath, and the master bedroom.
Okay.
Those are the most, and the entry hall, because that's your welcoming. Those are the most important. If you're going to do anything, you're going to do those rooms.
Okay. So curious on stove. So when I look at homes, and I just whatever, I'm scrolling through entertainment, and I love gas stoves.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you do, or are you able to buy a home that you see it's an electric stove, and can you get a gas stove? Like, what kind of a process is that? Because I just, nope, on to the next.
Let Builder answer.
Yeah. So, well, it depends. If you have gas to the property, you can like if you have gas heat, you have gas in the house. So
Okay.
you can have
So look
a
at that.
contractor plumber
Okay.
come in
Okay.
and run a gas line, to be able to do a gas stove or what have you. Some places, if there's not gas on the property, you can do propane.
Oh.
But that's quite costly
Okay.
to do that. So so if it's available in the home, usually you can work around it. If it's not available, but it's kind of interesting. Gas stoves are in the press starting to get not as good a reputation anymore because they're saying it could lead to, health issues. So,
Okay. I think I did hear something about
right,
up in New York that they're
induction cooktops, electric cooktops are getting better at being able to be a little fancier.
Right.
So, don't necessarily rule out the perfect house because it doesn't have gas.
Right.
But it is something that I personally like as well as the gas cooktop. And but I've looked at houses recently that they don't have gas to the house, so it's
Okay.
not an option.
And on the new construction versus resale, obviously you've been in a lot of homes. What are you seeing today as far as your, I guess, I don't want to say personal preference because I don't want to hold you to it, but when you're showing someone, is there really big differences between a new construction and a resale?
Well, it depends on what year the resale was built.
Right. Well, let's say
Yeah.
then a 20-year-old resale.
That's why it's really, because you're up against new construction. That's
Yeah.
if your resale is competing against that. That's one reason why it's really, really important if you're financially able to always update your home. Always do those. You don't have to do major renovations, but update those homes because you're against what Karen is seeing out there now as she's looking for her home.
Yep. And you're saying update would be the kitchen and the bath?
Yes, kitchen and bath.
Kitchen, bath, flooring. What we see a lot is just minor repairs that are let go, and they just become overwhelming. Wood rot around, the front doors. You can't just put paint over that, and the home inspector's not going to see that.
Okay.
It's just constantly look around and say, what can I do to improve the value of the home, and what do I need to do for the upkeep of this home?
Right. And I know right now the homeowners insurance rates are up, 70%? Well, all insurance rates, car insurance as well. But that's been a challenge. I used to quote, $100 a month,
Yeah,
$1,200 a year, bumped it to $1,500 a year. And now, quotes are coming in all over the place. So, yeah.
Well, you also have to be careful when you're showing property. When you first go under contract, we tell our buyers that they need to reach out to that insurance person early to make sure there's nothing that's not been disclosed that's going to affect your insurance premium.
Right.
So, because if they had a flood in the basement or fire, Now, of course, the seller should always disclose, but sometimes they don't, and you need to know that early on. So, because there's lots of things that could affect, and it might price you out. You might not qualify anymore.
Right. I had recently where the inspection, it looked beautiful, this house. And they said they backed out like 4 days after contract because of windows and electrical. And I was thinking, this home was built in 2015. I mean, isn't that odd, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought for an inspector to pick up something like that, it had to be pretty significant, right?
I sold it was a short sale back during the recession. It was in Chattahoochee. It was a beautiful home. It wasn't very old, maybe 4 years, 5 years old. Every window in the house was rotted.
Wow. Huh.
Because the builder did not caulk or flash a single window.
Oh, gosh.
And they just...
See, I wouldn't even think to look for that.
So that's really good. Karren, talk about like the different levels of inspections for new construction to avoid like that electrical problem. Maybe.
Yes.
This is,
So, so when we're working with... So I really enjoy working with buyers buying new construction because my dad was a builder.
Yeah.
And I used to walk lots with my dad, and, his first spec house, I swinging a hammer. And it's really important that if you buy a house that is to be built, that you really can do 3 inspections. People don't think
I did
about
not
it.
know that.
You can do a foundation slab inspection.
Okay.
Once they've done the footings and everything for the property to make sure that everything is as it should be. Now the county comes in and inspects that as well, but you're relying on somebody else to make sure that things are done right. So if you have your own inspector check that, then they can flag it before the county inspector comes out. So that kind of helps the builder to make sure that things are square before they have the real guy come in. And then pre-drywall, especially, even if you don't do the slab inspection, do a pre-drywall inspection and go in there when you're doing the inspection. Walk it with the builder for the whole time if you can.
Okay.
And take pictures of every wall so you know where all the plumbing runs, where all the electrical runs.
Okay.
So because once they put that drywall in, you're never going to see that again.
Right.
You won't know that there's, a pipe in this wall, and you might hang a picture and go right through a pipe.
Okay.
So it's the huge benefit of being able to build new construction.
I don't think I've ever had anybody with new construction. Well, I had one get an inspection, but other than that, I don't ever.
Oh my gosh,
we always
see
recommend.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then of course the final inspection. However, that pre-drywall, if you do no other, you got to do the pre-drywall.
Yeah.
Because our inspectors always find something pre-drywall, always. And they find stuff that the county may have not found.
Right.
Once that drywall goes in, you're never going to see it again.
Right. So this has been wonderful, by the way. Just thank you so much for coming on. So again, I love you guys or girls. And so, but give us, I guess, just, kind of as together, why would someone, instead of, like you say, these big teams, I know I talked before we even started our show about transaction coordinators and the fact that you do this yourself. You work together. So give the listeners why they should work with you as opposed to these big teams. I guess what would be your number one thing you would want our viewers to know?
Well, we take care of our people.
We take care of our people. If Karren's not available, I'm available. If I'm not available, Karren's available.
That is
we know
important.
what's going on with each transaction. And we take care of both sides of the transaction. If we're working with a seller, we make sure that we are responsive to the buyer's agent. We're communicating with you if you are the lender on the other side. The attorneys, we're just proactive. Yeah.
So you yourselves are the ones reaching out to all of the vendors, and for me, for example,
Right.
I don't have to say, okay, you've punted it to Mary, and she's the one who's going to be bothering me every 10 minutes.
That-
Is
well,
this in? You're the one.
We do have a Robin. We do have a transaction coordinator.
Okay.
But they're really the paper pusher.
Got it. Okay.
You know,
Okay.
you need that person to kind of help keep us.
Right.
Everybody, you know, it's more eyes on the prize.
Yep. Okay.
But I do think that we have. We all know what's going on.
Yeah.
The transaction coordinator's not in their little world.
Right.
We sometimes are calling them saying, you need to check this. You haven't done this yet. And, you know, just because, you know, it depends on the client. We've had clients before that I know they're going to call and start wiring money a week ahead of time. So
Yes.
we've got to be even earlier than normal
Right.
with this client. So,
Yeah.
but, you know, we handle the important stuff, all the
Yeah.
negotiations, working with the vendors, showing up at the inspections. We are there.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
holding their hands. I mean, we're not picking for them who to use,
Yeah.
but we have people to recommend, and then they get to choose who they want to use.
Well, that is the number one thing. I think the fact that you're there, and especially for the inspections, because I don't know how many times I'll hear, well, the inspection's scheduled, and they're not. There's nobody there, just the inspector.
Yeah, when I hear that,
Yeah.
if we have especially if we have a listing and we know the inspection's taking place. Oh, is the buyer's agent? Are you going? Oh no, I'm not
Right.
going to be there. Like,
Yep.
No, we're always there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
our
for
buyers.
our listeners, we're about ready to wrap up our show. So if you
Thank you.
can give your contact information, name and phone number again, and email, and then we'll also put it for our
great.
viewers.
Okay. Well, I'm Karren Amidon, and our team email is team@atlantahomeshop.com, and my cell number is 678-523-3581. And
Kathryn Brown, and again, it's team@atlantahomeshop.com, and my cell phone is 770-845-3420.
Wonderful. And I am the host, Katrina Lucisano. I'm with Silverton Mortgage, and I'm so happy that you were on with me. If anybody has any mortgage-related questions, please reach out to me. I am at 678-778-6858. And my email is katrina.lucisano, Lucisano, @silvertonmortgage.com. So thank you again. This has been a
Thank
wonderful
you.
show. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited to do some business with you this year.
This is awesome.
So
Yes.
have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.